We're going to now take you live to President Trump. He is delivering remarks from his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. Let's listen in for a moment.
CEOs Mark Zuckerberg, Sundar Pichai, and Jack Dorsey. Three real nice guys. We're asking the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida to order an immediate halt to social media companies' illegal, shameful censorship of the American people, and that's exactly what they are doing. We're demanding an end to the shadow banning, a stop to the silencing, and a stop to the blacklisting, banishing, and canceling that you know so well. Our case will prove this censorship is unlawful, it's unconstitutional, and it's completely un-American. We all know that. We all know that very, very well. Our filing also seeks injunctive relief to allow prompt restitution and really restoration, and you can name about 20 other things, and it has to be prompt because it's destroying our country. Of my accounts, in addition, we are asking the court to impose punitive damages on these social media giants. We're going to hold big tech very accountable. This is the first of numerous other lawsuits, I assume, that would follow. But this is the lead, and I think it's going to be a very, very important game changer for our country. It will be a pivotal battle in the defense of the First Amendment, and in the end, I am confident that we will achieve a historic victory for American freedom and, at the same time, freedom of speech. So I want to thank all of the exceptional legal team behind this effort. In particular, John Cole. We have a lot of the tobacco lawyers. You know, I said, who are the best lawyers? Well, the tobacco lawyers seem to do a very good job, so I figured let's see if they want to do it, and they really wanted to do it. We have great, great talent. I also want to thank Brooke Rollins, just an outstanding person and friend. She's carrying it out to a level that nobody saw, and she's done it very quickly, together with Linda McMahon, a tremendously successful woman who did an incredible job in the administration, one of the best, and everyone at the America First Policy Institute for their support of this vital initiative. From the very beginning of our nation, freedom of speech has always been understood as a bedrock of our liberty and our strength. In America, we recognize that the freedom to speak our minds and express the truth that is our heart, really, that's really a big chunk of our heart. It is our heart. It is not granted to us by government. It's given to us by God, and no one should have the power to take that right away. The Founding Fathers inscribed this right in the very First Amendment to our Constitution because they knew that free speech is essential to the prevention of horror and to the preservation of our republic. But remember the words, the prevention of horror, because we're very close to seeing that now in our country. We've never been in a position like this, and it's all happened very quickly. In the words of the father of our country, although some would like to take that title away from him, George Washington, he will not be canceled. If freedom of speech may be taken away, then dumb and silent, we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. Pretty well-known phrase, and so true. Unfortunately, today, this fundamental American right and liberty is under incredible threat and attack by a lot of different sides. But we are the majority side by a lot. I believe we are the majority side by far more than anybody would understand. You just have to take a look at what happened in recent elections, and add up the right numbers, you will see a majority like you wouldn't believe, because nobody can believe what some of the things that are being said are. Nobody believes that. Social media has given extraordinary power to a group of big tech giants that are working with government, the mainstream media, and a large segment of a political party to silence and suppress the views of the American people. And they've been very, very successful at that. Not in all cases, but in many cases, totally successful. While the social media companies are officially private entities, in recent years they have ceased to be private with the enactment and their historical use of Section 230, which profoundly protects them from liability. Once they got Section 230, they're not private companies anymore in a lot of views. No other companies in our country, and even in our country's history, have had protection like this. It's, in effect, a massive government subsidy. These companies have been co-opted, coerced, and weaponized by government and by government actors to become the enforcers of illegal, unconstitutional censorship. And that's what it is, at the highest level, censorship, and so many other things that perhaps are even worse. And you'll be seeing that in this lawsuit as it wells its way through the courts. We have all seen Democrats in Congress haul the CEOs of these companies before their committees and attempt to threaten them, bully them, and intimidate them like nobody has been intimidated. But they made a deal. They all get along very nicely now. Thank you very much. Congress has repeatedly told big tech that if they do not silence Democrats' political opponents, ban prominent conservative voices, I wonder who that would be, and restrict what the left ominously labels as disinformation, and they are the greatest disinformation group of people ever in the world. As an example, just recently, now they're saying, we never said defund the police, we want to fund the police. They looked at poll numbers at 85% against them. No, we want to take care of the police. No, they don't. They wanted to fund the police. And they'll say it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And by the end of 12 months, you'll all be saying, oh, they love the police. They don't love the police. They actually hate the police for whatever reason. And it's just a terrible thing. And so many other things. They're changing their views on so many other things. And they just say the opposite. They don't even go to anything. They just all in unison. A lot of the people sitting right before me understand exactly what I'm saying. They say it right before you, that we want to do this, we want to do that. It's the exact opposite of what they've been saying. Or, probably the most famous of all, Russia, Russia, Russia. Trump loves Russia. He loves Russia. He loves Putin. He loves Russia. And that went on for 2 years. And some people believed it. But we are going to look so closely, and we're going to make sure that the liability protections that they have under Section 230 is at a very minimum changed and maybe at a maximum taken away. The Supreme Court has made it exceedingly clear that Congress is not allowed to coerce private entities into doing what Congress does, and they're not allowed to do it. The lawful authority is just not there. They can't do it. They bully and they coerce. Yet that's exactly what's taking place every single day. It's a flagrant violation of the Constitution going on before our very eyes. And I hate to say this, but they do it with the Supreme Court, too. They play the refs. They play the refs. They talk about all sorts of things they're going to do to Supreme Court justices. We're going to impeach him. We're going to impeach him. We're going to impeach him. And then, lo and behold, all of a sudden, different decisions come out. Or we're going to enlarge that court to a level that nobody can believe. We are going to take that court and we're going to enlarge it. We're going We're going to have 16. We're going to have 20. I saw one the other day. We're going to have 24 justices. And I guess things happen because all of a sudden decisions come out. They play the ref. They play the ref better than Bobby Knight has ever played the ref. And we can't let that happen. And hopefully our Supreme Court justices and other judges and justices, they stand up for our values. And they don't let that happen. In addition, in recent years, we have also seen increasing coordination between big tech giants and government agencies such as the Centers for Disease Control, where so much was wrong, so many things could have been different, but big tech happened to choose the wrong side, and they banned the right side. For example, YouTube's policy explicitly forbids contradicting, quote, health authorities. You know the health authorities. Fortunately, I overrode the health authorities quite a bit. There was a lot of good decisions made. If I didn't, we would have been in much bigger trouble, like you see other countries right now are still in very, very big trouble. Through such coordination, the federal government has essentially deputized social media platforms to become the de facto censorship arm of the U.S. government, which is exactly what's happened. This was especially clear during the pandemic when social media giants began censoring information according to guidance by the CDC, which, as we now know, was very often incorrect or wrong. This censorship is yet another blatant violation of the Constitution. There's so many violations of our Constitution, and you'll see that in the suit, which will also be added to, because other things are happening on a daily basis that will be added as we go along. Consider just some of the information that has been censored in America over the past year. Until recently, Facebook had a policy to eliminate all posts sharing evidence that the horrible virus emerged from China. They said it didn't emerge from the Chinese lab, Wuhan. Remember, I said Wuhan, and it was like a bomb went up. Wuhan came from the Wuhan lab. Of course, there were body bags all outside the lab. Nobody ever mentions that. I wonder why. They said it came 1,000 miles away from a bat, or it came from another country. They tried to blame Italy. They tried to blame us. But they gave that one up. That was also misinformation. But then it was finally revealed that this was most likely the truth, that it came from the lab. And it was a small little story, but when I said it, it was like a weapon went off, a major weapon. I won't use the word weapon, because I never use the word nuclear, but we have to be careful with our leadership, because if we don't have the proper leadership, we're in a very perilous state. So we don't use the word nuclear. I never use it, okay? Never use it. I never said it. That's called disinformation. Google and YouTube have deleted countless videos that dared to question the judgment of the World Health Organization, which has been wrong so often. It's been a really pipe organ for China, as most of you know, calling those videos misinformation, including videos that consist of clear scientific fact. Doctors and medical groups have been barred from these platforms for posting about therapeutics such as hydroxychloroquine, which now, most recent studies say, is effective in combating the virus. 3 cents a pill. The drug companies don't like 3 cents a pill. 3 cents a pill is what it costs. But recent studies have come out very strongly in favor. Twitter has censored users simply for using the term illegal alien, which it has labeled as hateful content, and just taken you off for whatever reason. You have to see the sentence they took me off for. It's the most loving sentence. It's really amazing. They could have done better, because I've had a lot worse. I mean, I couldn't believe that was the reason. Take a look at it. You know exactly the sentence I'm talking about. It's become very famous. People are saying, really? Even the other side said, really? And of course, there is no better evidence that big tech is out of control than the fact that they banned the sitting president of the United States earlier this year, a ban that continues to this day, continues. So we get the word out, but it's not a fair situation. Very, very bad for this country, very bad for the world. If they can do it to me, they can do it to anyone. And in fact, that is exactly what they're doing. They're taking people off who don't even realize they were taken off. They have no idea why they were taken off. But what they're doing is incredible and incredibly dangerous. Joining us this morning are just a few of the many Americans who have been illegally banned or silenced under the corrupt regime of censorship. These brave patriots are included in the lawsuit, and thousands more are joining as we speak. Thousands more. They're all wanting to join. This will be, I think, will go down as the biggest class action ever filed, because thousands of people want to join. Jen Horton is a school teacher from Fenton, Michigan. Earlier this year, she was kicked off Facebook for sharing a post questioning whether young children should be required to wear masks. She had a question, giving both sides, and actually not negative, just giving both sides. That was enough. At the same time, as Jen was deplatformed, her brother had gone missing, and she was unable to get the word out to all of her followers. She had a lot of followers, could not get the word out. And Jen, I want to thank you very much for being here and stepping forward. Takes a lot of courage. Would you like to come up and say something, Jen? Where's Jen? Jen, please. Thank you. Thank you.
I just appreciate the opportunity to be here with all of these amazing patriots, and I thank you, President Trump, for everything you're doing for us.
Thank you, Jen, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jen. Dr. Kelly Victory, I love that name. I would have gone with that name if I had the choice. Is a board-certified trauma and emergency specialist from Colorado, great person, who was asked by the pastor of a church to prepare a video about how to mitigate risks of the China virus to allow church
All right, we have
services.
been listening to President Trump, former President Trump, speaking from his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. He has announced he is leading a class action lawsuit against big tech. In the suit he has filed, he names Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, Google CEO Sundar Pichai, and also Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg by name. The president saying he's suing them essentially for banning him in the aftermath of the Capitol invasion on January 6th. He says their moves were, quote, un-American, unlawful, and unconstitutional. So far, Twitter has permanently banned the president, no matter what, even if he runs again. They said he's not coming back to the platform. Facebook has taken a slightly different, modified approach. He is banned now through 2023, but they may reconsider that decision if they say his account no longer constitutes a threat to public safety. I want to bring in Emily Campagno. She is an attorney, also co-host of Outnumbered. She has kindly been standing by, listening to this, to these remarks, so that she can break it all down for us. Emily, what's your number one takeaway here so far?
My number one takeaway is that this class action is based on the premise that these digital platforms are sort of quasi-government institutions, that instead of being wholly private, that they've been granted special favors by the government and therefore do not have that right to exclude that a lot of private companies do. Now, I'm basing this on Justice Thomas's dissent in the Biden versus Knights of Columbia case that came out of the Supreme Court earlier this year in April, upon which it's my understanding that this complaint is largely based on. It's that premise that was really developed there and articulated by Justice Thomas that here this team has pounced on to file their lawsuit with. But I want to point out as well for viewers that they understand that a certification of a class action occurs by a judge, meaning you can file a lawsuit as a class action, but it's technically not certified as such until a judge does it. So the first step, obviously, that this lawsuit has been filed. We are all looking forward to reading it and dissecting it further, and upon which, once it's taken into consideration, the judge will in fact determine whether it does meet the standards for a class action, in which case he or she will certify it or decline to certify it, in which case then it would just be back to that sole plaintiff.
So one of the things that he said just now, Emily, was he leveled this claim that during the pandemic specifically, big tech and the social media companies became a de facto fourth arm of government. He says they did this. He accuses them of censoring true, real information about the spread of the coronavirus, and he says that they also promoted falsehoods from other government officials. How does that stack up to what the case you've heard from him in the past?
Right. It seems to me that that's going to be part of their argument, right? That not only was this a disparate application in terms of censorship, but frankly that they were censoring actual true facts and they were allowing to be amplified. This is again their allegations here, allowing to be amplified falsehood. So they're not really applying their own set of standards correctly, fairly to their users, as well as acting as an arm of government. He said that they had been deputized essentially, so acting as that arm. And I go back again to the Justice Thomas concurrence upon which this is based, where he articulates the fact that when the government has given special favors to quasi-government entities, he calls them, like common carriers, for example, he says that that's when they come out of that private entity space. They again become that quasi-government entity, and that's what the former president here is arguing. He's saying, look, they were acting as an arm of the government and therefore not allowed to exclude, therefore not allowed to censor, and that's where that First Amendment argument comes into play. Justice Thomas also, by the way, noted that governments, the limited private companies' right to exclude is even more stark the larger the market share that private entity has. And so I look forward to as well seeing fleshed out the fact, this argument that, you know, for example, when you type something into a search engine, Google is that gate between your search and 90% of the information out there. So here we're going to hear from the president where, although these companies argue, oh, we're not a dominant force, or we're not the only force in the market, there's other avenues out there, the argument will be that the lion's share they hold is in part what bolsters the argument that they in fact are acting as this quasi-government entity here.
Interesting. All right, Emily, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Always love talking to you, and we'll see you in just a few minutes for Outnumbered at noon.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, so President Biden's national security team is meeting today. They're discussing how to respond to cyber criminals that are linked to Russia. This comes as the president is weighing the extent of the damage from what is believed to be the biggest ransomware attack on record and issuing a veiled threat to Russian leaders. The attack was launched on July 2nd. It centered on the Miami-based software firm Kaseya, and it affected up to 1,500 businesses across the globe. Take a listen.
Years to have caused minimal damage to U.S. businesses, but we're still gathering information to the full extent of the attack. That's what I can tell you now.
A quick look at your top headlines this hour. This morning, gunmen assassinated Haiti's President Jovenel Moise at his home. They also wounded his wife by a gunshot. The prime minister there confirmed the killing and condemned it as a, quote, barbaric act. The country of Haiti now faces political and security uncertainty and escalating violence amid anti-government protests. Tropical storm Elsa is pummeling Florida's west coast with heavy rain and strong winds as it nears landfall today. Now, a hurricane warning is in effect for the west coast as the storm is threatening flooding, wind damage, and even severe power outages. Meantime, the weather is disrupting search efforts at that collapsed condo in Surfside, Florida. The death toll there now stands at 46 after fire rescue officials confirmed 10 bodies were from the rubble today. The Hometown Heroes ticker tape parade in New York City will honor the heroes of the COVID-19 pandemic today. The Queen's nurse, who was the first person in the U.S. to get the COVID vaccine, will serve as the parade's grand marshal.
Mark my words, our union will defend any member who gets in trouble for teaching honest history. We have a legal defense fund ready to go, and we are preparing for litigation as we speak. Teaching the truth is not radical or wrong. Distorting history and threatening educators for teaching the truth is what is truly radical and wrong.
That's the American Federation of Teachers President Randi Weingarten firing a warning shot at opponents of critical race theory. She says her union is not going to allow members to get bullied over teaching the truth. This comes as a new report suggests over 5,000 educators have signed on to this petition that pledges to break anti-CRT laws that are making their way through over a dozen state legislators. 6 states have already banned CRT in public schools. Anita Vogel has all the details from Washington. Hi, Anita.
Hi, Jillian. That's right. Randi Weingarten gave some pretty pointed remarks yesterday, vowing to defend teachers with big bucks and attacking critics who are pushing back on the idea that critical race theory is anything but the truth. But if you were listening to her speech yesterday, you might have been a little confused. In one breath, she said critical race theory, the idea that racism is deeply embedded in the American legal system, is only taught in college and law school. But then she went on to say teachers needed to be defended and students needed to be taught from that point of view.
These cultural warriors want to deprive students of a robust understanding of our common history. This will put students at a disadvantage in life by knocking a big hole in their understanding of our country and the world.
But the argument is, what is considered common history? Critics of CRT insist it teaches history through the prism of race. Well, one veteran teacher who taught for decades now runs the Teachers Empowerment Network out in California. He says this whole notion could end up damaging our kids at a critical age.
I taught slavery. Why? Because it was part of the United States. It's not a great moment, but it happened. We also got rid of it. Randi Weingarten's talking about critical race theory as if it's fact. It is not fact. It is a theory.
And there is also reporting today suggesting while the National Education Association just a few days ago adopted something called New Business Item 39, calling for teams to share, publicize, and defend critical race theory, that item appears to have been removed from the website, perhaps after some negative reporting. We're not really sure. In any case, at some point, a longtime teacher will tour a public school here in D.C., along with Randi Weingarten. Should be some interesting conversation there. Jillian.
Anita, thanks for breaking it all down for us. We appreciate it. So the New York Post editorial board's out now with a scathing piece. It says the NEA's enforcing of critical race theory in schools does kids a grave injustice. Let's bring in the power panel to debate. We've got John O'Caldwell. He's a Fox News political analyst, as well as Desiree Timms. She's a former Democratic congressional candidate out of Ohio and president and CEO of Innovation Ohio. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Desiree, I'm going to start with you first. Let's drill down on what critical race theory is and isn't off the top of this segment. Is it, as Randi Weingarten says, simply the truth and real American history, or is it a theory open to interpretation and different opinions?
Critical race theory is a theory, it's a legal concept, it is an academic framework to ensure that we are teaching our children an honest and accurate account of history, looking through the lens of how laws are created and shaped. It is beyond slavery. It also includes talking about civil rights laws, the Voting Rights Act. We're talking about how we got here as a nation. And I still have yet to hear from someone why it is so wrong to teach our children the beginning of history, starting with 1619 and how we got here now. What is so wrong with having an honest and accurate conversation? I am actually so proud and thrilled for our educators for standing up and our unions for having a strong backbone, talking about and saying and leaning into the truth. And the truth is what our children need to learn, and we should not rob them of having an accurate account of our history.
All right, Jonna, what do Republicans have against the truth?
You know what's interesting? Back in June, Republicans have nothing against the truth. Let's first respond to that. But back in June, many folks, whether it be Democratic Party or the mainstream media, was saying Republicans are making a big fuss over nothing. Critical race theory isn't being taught to our children. And then we see where this union is saying, hey, we're going to ensure that you have the safety and legal resources to teach exactly what you want to teach. This is a theory. It is, as they call it, a lens. It's one which has various opinions. And if you really want to talk about what Republicans are pushing back against, you think about a place like Oklahoma, which has banned the teaching of critical race theory. In it, it says they are banning an individual, teachers from teaching that an individual by virtue of his or her race or sex is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive. What's wrong with that? I mean, that's actually true. A person isn't born racist. No one's born that way, no matter what color they are. God didn't create those kind of people. People learn that. And when we're talking about accurate history, I learned accurate history when I was growing up. I learned about slavery. I learned about